Joining us now here in the studio is Professor Ben Korn, Life's Door Organization. How are you today?
Very well, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. So you recently announced the new Institute for Hope, for the study of hope, dignity, and well-being at the Hebrew University. So congratulations. So given everything in Israeli society that's been going on and we've been facing, it feels kind of timely. So can you tell me a little bit about this initiative?
Yes, absolutely. So we've been studying hope for over a decade. It started in this interest as a physician taking care of patients with cancer, because I realized that what really binds all of them together is this quest for hope. Human beings crave hope. It's, I think, one of our defining virtues. And it turns out that hope, as opposed to optimism, is something that we can actually attain. For optimists, those are not synonyms.
Right.
You either have it or you don't. It's a trait, whereas hope is a state. And the state of hopefulness is dependent on these three things. You have to have a goal. Hope is very future-oriented, and that goal needs to be meaningful to you and plausible. You have to have a path to reach the goal, even though you know that the path is going to be full of these obstacles that might get in your way, and the hopeful person learns how to circumnavigate those obstacles. And you need to have the agency, the drive, to set out on that pathway. And we've developed these techniques, first with a workshop, now with a smartphone app, that allow you...
But can you give me an example?
Right,
An example of what hope is?
Right.
For let's say, someone who's been through terror, like a terror attack.
Right. So, first of all, there can be hope on multiple levels, and we see this with patients with cancer, and we see this with people who are traumatized. We all have hopes on the national level for being victorious in a war, of course, bring our hostages back. But when we look out at that landscape, we say to ourselves, "What can I do? I mean, I'm living in my little space. How can I influence this? I'm not in the government. What can I do?"
Right.
So that can become actually a downer. It can become very depressing. Well, it turns out there are data from those who study hope theory that what you can do is begin to think about hope in your personal space. And if I define a goal for myself, it could be a goal medically, it could be a goal in my family. Let's say a classic one is all of us, and we're not going to get personal here, have an estranged relative. Maybe it could be some uncle that stopped talking to me. Why is that? So my goal could be to get closer to that person, to find a way to do that. And if I achieve that goal, then all of a sudden I become more hopeful in my own space and more hopeful about what I might be doing on a national level.
Right.
And that, in fact, might give me the incentive to then link up with other people and see if we really can make a difference in society.
Right. And then I cut you off, I'm sorry, when you started speaking about the app.
Right. Yeah. So when COVID came along, we had really gotten our act together about how to do these workshops. We can teach people how to be hopeful. We can teach 90% of people how to be hopeful in about 90 minutes. But COVID put a
If only we had 90 minutes right now.
Yeah, I know.
That would be great. I'd go out of the door and I'd be hopeful.
Right. Well, you're really invited to join us in one of the seminars. Okay. But what we realized when COVID came along was we couldn't have that intimate contact in a comfortable room and go about doing these seminars. So of course we switched to a Zoom platform.
But it's not the same.
But it's not the same. And we understood what the most important principles are. So we developed this very fun to use smartphone app. We're not trying to make money on it. Everybody can have access to it. And that in and of itself helps people. We've piloted it now, we've tested it, we've reported the data on it. That can be used as a tool to allow you to become more hopeful. In fact, what we've done even more recently is some people like to have a self-directed learning module. And we're testing, I don't have data on this, but we can now teach you, in theory, within maybe 30 minutes how to learn some of these techniques. Wow. So we're very excited about that.
Okay, so we'll stay around here for 30 minutes.
Yeah, that we might have.
So is there also a medical definition for hope? Like how do you define that as an oncologist?
Right. So one of the mistakes we make in medicine, particularly in oncology, I think me and my colleagues have been guilty of this for years, is that we create this equation, which is that hope equals cure. Now the problem with that is that even though we're very successful with curing people now, over 60% of patients with malignant disease can achieve cure. But what do you do for the other 35 or 40% that we still can't cure? are they to be denied hopefulness? And the answer is no, because if you go back to what we talked about before, there can be other goals. So once I learn that I can't really cure someone as a cancer specialist, I'll begin to try and become more human, get closer to the individual and say, what is it that's really important to you? What do I need to know about you as a person? And how can we then align your values, your core values, with these goals that we might want? And the reason that we're so excited about this institute is for several issues. First of all, we think this has to be studied. We don't think it's enough to have a nice idea, as touchy-feely as it might be, even though no one's against hope.
Yeah.
We want to be able to document our success. We want to learn from things that we're not successful at. So we want to have a way to really concretize this idea of hopefulness. Second, we want to use the Institute to train the next generation of researchers. We want to make sure that there are others who will take the torch and move it forward, people with their own creative ideas. And for this reason, we've established fellowships and scholarships. We have one for an Israeli scientist, and we have one for an American scientist. This year, it's somebody from Hebrew University on the Israeli side, somebody from UCLA on the American side. And they're studying very creative things like, can hope itself be contagious? Not like an infectious disease, but can it spread in a positive way from one person to another? And what can it do in society as well? We believe that hope is a social technology, and we've gotten programs now off the ground for, let's say, the wives of reservists, the wives of the Miluimnikim, who are going through hell. And we are there to teach them these techniques. So the person who's a reservist might be dealing with a wife, a mother, a grandmother who are perennially worried about that person. What do? We've had programs with Matav, for foreign workers. You know, when the war began, I think the King of Thailand was willing to send a plane here and to bring all the foreign workers away. But what do we do for the elderly in our population who are the beneficiaries of this? What do we do for our agribusinesses, where these are most of the folks who, and I very much appreciate this, you know, pick our fruit. We would have potentially a crisis when it comes to food shortages.
So you mentioned wives of reservists in the IDF, and I'm curious to how you can actually, you know, after October 7th, during this period of almost 2 years, right? It's a really long period of time. So how are you able to help these wives, or occasionally also husbands, but you know, families?
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes you know,
parents.
Parents, that's right. All of this is true. So first of all, one of the things that helps is here to bring them together.
Okay.
Here we don't want to do it remotely because there are data in lots of different realms which show that hopefulness is augmented by the social component. People want a sense of belonging. People don't want loneliness. And so by bringing them together to share their experiences, to share the problems they've had, to share different techniques that they've intuited to try and help with the stresses in their lives, that goes a long way. And then we go through the same exercises that I began to speak to you about before, trying to understand what is meaningful to you, what can be your goals. Sometimes it's just navigating, you know, the benefits that they should be getting from our government. How can we enable that for them? And they're very appreciative of this.
Right. So finally, what, you know, for those who are watching this, you know, what would you want them to know about hope and how to achieve it, or how to help people get to that state of mind?
Right.
Is it a state of mind? I mean,
for sure. It really, I mean, as we're speaking about it, it's very cognitive in its orientation. So the mind has a big play in it. In fact, we've studied the parts of the mind that are most involved in the hope circuitry. But I think even more than that, as much as I'm a bit of a romantic, I'm not speaking about a romantic definition of hope, about rainbows and kittens.
Right.
Rather, the radicality of this is that hope is very pragmatic. For people to understand that it's, you know, as we say in Hebrew, lo bashamayim, it's not in the heavens, that it's very much attainable. If you're willing to think about who you are, what makes your day, what's important to you, and then our job as professionals trying to enhance hopefulness is to find a way to connect you to those goals through your values.
Wow. Okay. So thank you very much, Professor Korn, for being with us, and thank you for doing this important work. And hopefully, and I know you've helped many people in their life, and you should be able to achieve a lot more.
Thanks
Thank
so much.
you so much.
Appreciate it.